Welcome to the deep dive, where we take a stack of information and, well, distill the most vital insights for you.
That's the goal.
Today, we're diving into a topic that's not just important, but deeply, urgently human: the education of refugee children and youth. You might actually be surprised by how much is known, and maybe more importantly, how much remains stubbornly unknown.
Mm.
Our mission today is really to try and make the invisible visible. Let's unpack this.
Indeed, yeah. We're drawing from a pretty comprehensive report by UNESCO and UNHCR, which gives us that global overview of refugee education data.
Okay.
And we'll also be weaving in crucial insights from UN Women on the specific challenges women refugees face.
Right.
And an analysis of the vital impact international NGOs have. Together, we'll hopefully shed some light on how well, or often how poorly, we're currently tracking the educational journeys of forcibly displaced people around the world.
It's such a critical area because we're talking about, what, over 108 million forcibly displaced people globally?
It's a staggering number.
Yeah, and here's where it really hits home for me. Roughly 40% of them are estimated to be children.
40%.
Now, we all know education is a fundamental human right, right? It's the bedrock of sustainable development. It's right there in Sustainable Development Goal 4, that big promise to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education.
And promote lifelong learning opportunities for all.
Exactly. But how can we ever hope to achieve that if a huge portion of these learners, like imagine a 10-year-old girl, let's call her Lena, who's just arrived in a new country?
Right.
How can we achieve it if she and millions like her remain largely invisible in our global data systems?
That's the core question.
So when we talk about Lena and those millions of other kids, what exactly makes these learners so difficult to track? And why is that such a monumental problem?
Well, a really striking detail from that UNESCO and UNHCR report is just how elusive this data is. I mean, this was a huge review looking at over 1,100 questionnaires from more than 600 data collection exercises across 35 major low- and middle-income refugee hosting countries. And it revealed this stark reality. Fewer than 4 out of 10 of those questionnaires included any form of refugee identification question.
Fewer than 4 out of 10.
Yeah. Think about that.
That's a profound gap.
It means we're fundamentally blind to the specific needs and progress of millions. It makes effective aid, future planning, well, almost impossible.
So even if refugee children are physically in the schools,
Right.
the systems often aren't designed to even know they're refugees.
Pretty much. Their unique status isn't captured.
How are these data collection efforts even trying to identify refugees then, and what's making those methods fall short?
Yeah, this brings up a really critical point about methodology. The study found basically 4 main ways people try to identify forcibly displaced groups.
Okay.
First, there's self-identification. Simple enough, where someone just says if they're displaced.
Seems straightforward.
It does.
Yeah.
It's surprisingly uncommon in the data they reviewed, and it often lacks any kind of standardization.
Okay. What else?
Then there's documentation, relying on official ID papers.
Also makes sense.
But again, rarely used in the data they looked at. Perhaps because refugees often struggle to get or keep those documents during displacement?
Yeah, that's a known issue. Okay. Third.
Third is what they call criteria-based approaches. This uses a set of questions like country of origin, why they migrated, how long they've been displaced. This is actually considered the best practice for accuracy.
Okay, so that sounds promising.
It does, but get this. It was comprehensively used in only 2. Just 2.
Yeah.
Out of the over 1,100 questionnaires they examined.
2 out of 1,100.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay, so what's the last one? The most common one, presumably.
Yes, the most common was proxy-based identification. This means using indirect indicators, like nationality or country of birth.
Okay.
Now, this showed up at about 34% of questionnaires, so it was the most frequent.
I sense a but.
There's a big but. It often only allowed for a really simple binary classification, like national or foreigner. In fact, a quarter of the questions about country of birth or citizenship limited the data just to that: national, foreigner. That's it.
Which severely restricts identifying refugees specifically.
Precisely. It lumps everyone else together.
So it sounds like the methods are either not precise enough, or they're just not being applied consistently, or maybe both.
A bit of both, yeah.
Okay, so beyond just identifying who is in school, are we getting any better information on the actual educational experience? Things like access, quality of teaching, or even how safe the learning environment is.
Right. Stepping back for a moment, the report kind of categorizes this education data into 3 key buckets: access, quality, and safety.
Makes sense.
For access to education, such as getting kids into school, questions about that were the most common. They popped up in about 75% of the questionnaires reviewed.
Okay, that sounds better.
It does, and access to schools itself was the most frequent specific indicator. However,
Another however.
yeah, huge caveat here, only 41% of those access-related questionnaires also included the refugee identification questions.
Sure. So less than half the time, even when we ask about access, we don't know if we're talking about refugees specifically.
Exactly. We might know general enrollment numbers, but we often don't have the specific rates for refugees like our fictional Lena.
Okay, so that's access. What about the quality of learning conditions?
Well, this area had significantly lower coverage. Quality questions appeared in only 49% of questionnaires.
Less than half.
And even more concerning, only 15%, 5% of the total questionnaires had questions on both quality and refugee identification.
15%, that's incredibly low.
It is. Literacy was the most frequently asked quality question, but other really crucial things like teacher qualifications or even if there are basic school supplies.
Yeah.
Largely absent from the data, especially data linked to refugees. It's really hard to improve what you're not measuring.
Absolutely. Okay, so access is patchy, quality is worse. What about the third bucket, safety and well-being in schools?
This was the least covered area all. Only 21% of questionnaires included any safety question.
A fifth.
And the overlap, the co-occurrence with refugee identification questions, minimal. Just 31 questionnaires in total.
31 out of over 1,100.
Yes. Or, put another way, only 13% of those questionnaires that did ask about safety also asked if the student was a refugee.
That's practically non-existent.
It really is. And while some common things like peer violence or school facilities were sometimes included, more sensitive, but critical topics like sexual violence or corporal punishment were very rarely measured. It leaves these critical protection needs completely in the dark.
That's incredibly sobering. It really feels like even when data is collected, it's rarely granular enough to tell us about refugees' specific experiences.
And safety.
Wow. Now, adding to this already challenging picture, you mentioned the UN Women Report highlights particular challenges for women and girls. How do their unique vulnerabilities affect this?
Yeah, that's a crucial layer. One really striking detail from the UN Women Report is that women and girls make up nearly half of all migrants and refugees globally.
Almost half.
Yeah, up to 42% in the Balkans, for instance. And they face really distinct challenges and protection risks, especially during transit. Things like family separation, severe psychosocial stress, health issues, especially for pregnant women,
Of course.
physical harm, exploitation, and gender-based violence. The estimates are stark. At least 1 in 5 refugee or displaced women have experienced sexual violence.
1 in 5, that's horrific.
It is. And on top of that, they often serve as the primary caretakers for children, for elderly family members, which just deepens their need for support and protection.
And all of that directly impacts their ability to get to school, stay in school, even just learn effectively when they are there.
Absolutely. But here's the disconnect. Despite these unique vulnerabilities, only 4% of UN interagency appeal projects back in 2014 specifically targeted women and girls.
Only 4%.
And even worse, a mere 0.4%, less than 0.5% of all funding to fragile states between 2012-2013 actually went to women's groups on the ground.
0.4%. That highlights a massive, profound disparity in addressing their needs, including educational needs.
It really does.
Okay, so the problem is stark. These huge data gaps, especially around identifying refugees, understanding the quality, the safety of their education, it feels like invisibility is the right word. But amidst this, are there any, promising practices, any solutions emerging to try and shed some light?
Absolutely. Yeah, there are definitely glimmers of hope. The report does highlight several actionable ways forward. One really crucial recommendation is simply to integrate those refugee identification questions directly into existing national data collection exercises.
Instead of separate surveys.
Exactly. It's far more cost-effective than trying to run standalone assessments just for refugees. And we are seeing some progress here. Well, for example, Colombia's CIMET. That's their National Education Management Information System. It's a really excellent model. They adapted it to include Venezuelan students, even those who didn't have full legal ID, by using country of origin and a kind of provisional ID number they call NES.
Okay.
And this interoperability, this connection, lets them track access and even results in national exams like their SABRE 11 test.
That's useful data.
Very. Though the data did reveal challenges, Venezuelan students often scored lower and faced hurdles getting diplomas because they lacked that official ID. But at least it was visible.
Right, the data showed the problem. Okay, any other examples?
Yeah, another promising one is Uganda's EMIS reform. Uganda is moving towards a system where all learners, including refugees, will get a unique learner identification number, a LIN.
A unique ID for every student.
Exactly. And that LIN will be linked to their national refugee number. This allows for much better tracking throughout their whole educational journey. And, importantly, it allows for interoperability with other national systems, like the refugee database run by the Prime Minister's office or the exam results board.
So data systems talking to each other, that sounds key.
It's huge. And then on a broader scale, you have international learning assessments like LLECE in Latin America. They're actually piloting adding human mobility modules and deliberately oversampling immigrant students in their 2025 assessments.
Oh, interesting. So actively seeking out that data.
Right, which could significantly boost the data we have on actual refugee learning outcomes, their academic progress.
That is genuinely encouraging to hear about governments and these large-scale assessments adapting. It shows a real willingness to try and make every LINA count.
It does.
How do international NGOs, the NGOs, fit into all this? What's their specific role in filling these gaps, maybe influencing policy?
Yeah, looking at the broader landscape, NGOs play an absolutely vital role. They often step in precisely where national systems leave gaps.
Makes sense.
The analysis shows their significant contributions to education itself. Things like accelerated learning programs, language programs. Crucial stuff for quick integration.
Right, getting kids caught up.
Exactly. And beyond just education, they've often been pioneers in things like cash assistance programs.
Direct financial support.
Yeah, which not only helps with immediate living conditions, but can also foster longer-term economic resilience for families. Think of the International Rescue Committee's work with Syrian refugees in Lebanon that directly impacts a family's ability to support their children's education.
Right, freeing up resources or enabling school fees. Okay, and what about the human element? How do refugees themselves perceive the support they get from NGOs versus, say, the national government? Does that affect where they might seek help, including for education?
That's a really important question, touching on trust and cultural familiarity. Often, refugees find NGO-run services, like clinics, for example, more accessible, maybe less bureaucratic than government hospitals.
Okay.
And they tend to trust NGOs more for things like legal aid, sometimes fearing deportation if they engage too much with government agencies.
That fear factor.
Yeah, exactly. There was ethnographic research among Afghan refugees in Iran, for instance, that showed a clear preference for NGOs staffed by fellow Afghans, just because of that shared cultural understanding.
So that trust can definitely influence where they seek educational support, maybe leaning towards NGO learning centers?
Absolutely. They might feel safer or more understood there. However, and this is interesting, these perceptions aren't static. They can evolve.
How so?
Well, initial positive views of NGO support might decrease over time as refugees start to realize the limitations of NGO power. NGOs can provide immediate help, but they might not be able to influence the bigger picture, the broader asylum and integration policies.
Right. They see the NGOs can only do so much within the existing system.
Precisely. So this highlights a key challenge. NGOs provide crucial immediate assistance, absolutely essential. But government initiatives are often seen, eventually, as more stable, more permanent for long-term integration into the host society.
So for Lena's long-term educational journey, having her schooling recognized and supported by the national system is ultimately critical.
It really is, for validation, for future opportunities.
Okay. So putting all these pieces together, the data gaps, the solutions, the roles of governments and NGOs, what does this all mean for how we collectively move forward? It really sounds like genuine collaboration and maybe a shared vision are absolutely critical to uncover the invisible.
Precisely. That's the main takeaway. The recommendations really emphasize the urgent need for all stakeholders, national governments, international organizations, NGOs, to work together, like truly together.
Towards what exactly?
Well, three main things. Firstly, to standardize data collection, develop shared definitions, shared indicators for refugee identification, and for education measures across all sectors.
So everyone's speaking the same data language.
Exactly. That ensures data quality, comparability. It makes it easier to track Lena's progress no matter where she might move or which agency is helping.
Okay. Standardize. What's second?
Secondly, to increase transparency. make the existing data, the metadata, even the questionnaires themselves publicly available.
Why is that important?
To reduce duplication of effort, for one, and to quickly see where the biggest gaps still lie. UNHCR, for example, is encouraged to take its currently scattered data and consolidate it into a single, searchable platform.
Makes sense. Open up the data. And third,
And perhaps most importantly, to broaden the focus beyond just access, we need to actively collect much more data on the quality of learning and the safety of school environments.
back to those areas with the huge gaps.
Exactly. These areas are currently severely underreported for refugee learners, yet they are absolute critical for shaping their overall development, ensuring their well-being, and ultimately helping them achieve their full potential.
Today, we've taken a deep dive into this complex, often quite frustrating, but ultimately hopeful world of refugee education data.
Hmm.
It's clear that while the challenge of accurately capturing these educational journeys is immense, there are promising pathways forward. From integrating those simple identification questions into national surveys, to leveraging the unique power of NGOs, to building these innovative data platforms, the ultimate goal has to be making every single refugee learner, every Lena, visible in the systems designed to support them.
It truly comes down to upholding that fundamental right to education for every single individual, ensuring no one is left behind simply because their circumstances make them hard to count. The data, when we collect it thoroughly inclusively, it really serves as our most essential compass. It guides us towards actionable solutions and hopefully towards sustainable, equitable outcomes for all these children.
Indeed. So as you go about your day, maybe consider this. What invaluable stories remain untold right now? What immense potential remains locked away simply because the data isn't there to reveal it? What steps can you take, maybe advocate for or support initiatives that ensure everyone counts and is counted in our global efforts towards education for all?